Welcome to my review of War for the Planet of the Apes. We're not monkeying around, it's time to celebrate and go ape. My name is Tom and welcome to the Film Buff channel. There's been 9 ape films now, a TV series, an animated series, and of course, several toys and other merchandise. I've been a fan of Planet of the Apes as long as I can remember. The original classic films have been a mainstay in my video collection through several versions over the years back to VHS. Based on a French novel, the original film series was made to comment on social status, society, race, religion, classes, and so much other juicy political commentary buried in sci-fi goodness. Though the makeup effects haven't aged well over the last few decades, the movies are still very enjoyable and hold the roots of the latest versions of the series. The film spawned an animated and live-action TV series, both fairly short-lived, but it looked very promising when Tim Burton decided to take a crack at remaking the original film. Although this was one of those times that Hollywood tried to tiptoe around the word remake and use the buzzword reimagining, which for all intent and purpose is kind of accurate. The movie is very ambitious with dazzling makeup, but it's very confusing and boring. Hackneyed, and the revision of the original film's story and twist, along with a lot of head-scratching choices in the film's narrative, made what was supposed to be a franchise-inducing blockbuster a joke and a footnote in the history of apes on film. About a decade after Burton showed us a preview of his next decade's worth of work, Apes was given another shot. This time, the makeup was put away, and the planet was made up of more humans than apes. Rise of the Planet of the Apes was a refreshing, clever take on the original films. Pulling ideas more from the last few films in the series, Rise uses the story of how the seeds of the Planet of the Apes were planted. The brilliant take would lead us to 2 more films in the series, with the third and latest film, War for the Planet of the Apes, being touted as the last of a trilogy. The sequel, Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, was an amazing follow-up that is held up to the likes of Aliens and Godfather Part 2, where a film rises above and beyond the original movie in most people's eyes by taking what the original built as a foundation and constructing an entirely new structure on top of that film. Now, the big question is, will the third film live up to the first 2? Well, more on that in a moment. As for the movie itself, Matt Reeves returns once again behind the camera, his second time around, after taking over for Rupert Wyatt on the sequel. The story picks up 10 years after the last film and 15 years since the first. War between man and apes seems to have been waging since the last film, when we left our hero Caesar, once again played by Andy Serkis. Caesar is in hiding, trying to flee the relentless colonel of the humans, played by Woody Harrelson. After correctly assuming that they have been compromised, Caesar decides to migrate the apes, but it's too late. The colonel finds them first. After suffering great losses, Caesar decides to go after the colonel, just as he had been pursued for so long himself. With only his most trusted colleagues along, his tribe is ambushed and they are taken prisoner, while Caesar and his crew are out looking for the base. On their way, the group picks up some new allies, including Bad Ape, played by the scene-stealing Steve Zahn, and the young Nova, played by Amaya Miller. Caesar soon discovers, after he's captured by the colonel, that the virus has mutated, and even those who were immune before are becoming afflicted and regress to a more primitive form of man. Caesar realizes that the colonel will stop at nothing until the apes are obliterated, but first he's using them to build a wall. Caesar is quick to reason that the other army coming from the north may not be coming to join the colonel. Caesar must find a way to free himself and his family and tribe before it's too late. Matt Reeves has composed a masterpiece and accomplishes in a third film what so many trilogies fail time and time again. The third film takes the first 2 films to a whole new level. There is so much depth to the characters and the story. The emotional roller coaster this film takes you on is a welcomed one, but amazing and so satisfying. The special effects are hands down some of the best CGI effects I have ever seen in my entire life. I'm generally not a fan of CGI, but I would swear in some scenes that they actually used apes, despite knowing better. They have come so far since the first and second film's dazzling effects that that's just the gravy on what is hands down the best trilogy probably since the original Star Wars films. I wasn't sure how, after the second film, this movie would stack up. Like most trilogies in other series, the third film is usually where they start to go off the rails, but not here. I'm not sure how they managed to make this film better than the first two movies that are already masterpieces on their own, but this is how you not only remake a well-known franchise, but this is how you make a trilogy. Nothing is wasted. There are so many payoffs, and there isn't a spare moment in this entire movie. Even when the film does slow down to take a breather, the moments are so poignant, and everything is so well constructed that nothing feels like filler. And like the first two films, yes, this is a potboiler, but it boils over, then it builds up again, and boils over again, without losing momentum or taking the audience for granted. Only a few minor moments do feel like they happen a tad quickly, but I'm sure there are some really good bits that wound up on the cutting room floor. Just the same, the movie is something that I can rarely call a perfect film. And that is what it is, a perfect film. Since the first two films carry the same rating of a full 10 out of 10 stars that I award, I cannot do this film justice. It's so remarkable that a tentpole film franchise like this can deliver, but they did, and bravo. I cannot praise the movie enough. I really hope that Spider-Man doesn't hurt this movie too much because both films are great. But I'd hate to see this film get caught in Spider-Man's web because Hollywood really needs to take note on how these movies were conceived, executed, and delivered. We need more of these. So it's no surprise that I already buried the lead, but yes, War for the Planet of the Apes is everything you could hope for and gets a 10 out of 10 glorious stars. Don't miss the film.